Now, the panel report submission in MedAccess is basically a three-step process. So I'm going to walk you through those three steps, and hopefully it's fairly straightforward. Step number one is we need to have a billing template in order to apply that to all of your panel patients. Now, in order to do this, we have to go into templates. Now, if you don't see this icon, that's because you don't have the permissions to create templates. So either somebody else in your clinic can create the template, or this person who has admin can give you privileges for that. We go into templates, and so I'm going to move this down, and we go into bills. We're going to create a new bill template. So we click on the new icon here, and it opens up a new template window. I'm just going to expand this a little bit. Okay. First thing we need to do is give this template a name. You can actually name it whatever's useful to you. In this instance, I'm going to call it the LFP panel, if I can spell correctly, panel report, and maybe I'll even put the code in just for reference. I'm going to leave the privileges as they are, but if you want to, you can restrict the privileges or leave it open for everybody to use. There are four things that we need to do to this template. The first is we're going to put a billing item, and the billing item for this is 98990. As you can see, it's called Primary Care Panel Report. Going to put that in there. And the code we're going to use for this is L23. Same as you're using for your other LFP work. Then what you need to do is expand the additional fields below. And the third item we need to add is the location. I think the vast majority of you will be L, longitudinal primary care practice, but I would just use the same code that you're using for your other LFP billings. And the fourth item we're going to add is the facility number. So in this instance, you would select the facility number that you're using for your clinic. And it really is as straightforward as that. I'm not going to put the billing provider or anybody like that. That will automatically get populated when we add this to the patients. I click Create Bill, and that's now saved. And you can see we've got it in the list, LFP Panel Report. Now, the one thing that I need to do here is I need to make it a favorite. If I don't make this a favorite, I won't be able to see it when I need to apply it to my list of patients through the reports. So I'm going to make this a user favorite. You could make it a clinic favorite. I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so that is the end of step one, creating the template. So step two, we go into reports. And you'll see this window here. On the left-hand side is the criteria, and on the right-hand side is where we see the list of patients or the different type of report that we can run. Now, for the purposes of this, we're going to keep this really simple because at this stage, this is after the panel cleanup has been done, and really we're just looking for active patients where you are the primary provider. So I'm going to expand the demographics section. And under the third field down, the status, I'm going to select active. And you can see I'm already set as the primary provider. If you're doing this for somebody else, then you would select the primary provider that's relevant for the panel submission that you want to do. Now, if you are using more than one status to determine your active patients, those patients that you're responsible for, you can add additional statuses. So you can click on that green plus, and then you can select other statuses that are relevant for you. Just bear in mind, this is a test database, and your options may look different to this. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to keep this to active. So simply status active where I'm the primary provider. Then we move over to the right-hand side, and we need to expand this searching section to show the list of patients. So I'm going to click on the arrow to expand this section, and if I click search, and you can see I have a ginormous panel. I've just got a few patients here. Obviously, your list will be considerably longer than this. Now, one thing it's worth doing at this point is to get a count of how many patients you have on your panel. So I recommend at this stage going up to under the report section And if you click on the down arrow, you can actually type the word count. And I would use the patient count PDF. So that would just open, it doesn't download a file, and you'll get a number. So if I click patient count PDF, and then I click on the print icon, it will show a print preview. And you can see my panel size is 7. So this is useful to take note of, because when we go to the step 3 of submitting the bills, it'll be useful to know, to make sure that we've created a bill for all of your panel patients. So in this case, obviously I've got a tiny panel of 7. Okay, the next step we need to do in here is we need to apply the bill to these patients. So what we do is we scroll down to the services section, we expand this, and we go select service. Here we choose apply bill. And then now we're going to choose the template that we've just created. So if I click on this, you'll now see we've got this LFP panel report 98990. I select this. We choose the service date. So typically you can just choose today's date when you're submitting your panel. And we can check for patient's primary provider just to ensure that it is for your patients. So those are the 4 fields that were populated as. Now, before I actually run this, you have here a limit. So your panels are obviously going to be significantly larger than this, will be in the hundreds or the odd 1,000 or so. So I would change this limit to the max. So you click on the black down arrow and change this to 200. You'll get a little warning, but that's okay. And if you had a large, like if you have more than 200, you'll see a little page icons here. And this is important because what we'll do is you need to submit, you can only submit the limit of 200 at a time. So assuming that this is a list of, say, 200 patients, I will come down here and I click on this gear icon, which executes the service. So what this is going to do, it's going to apply a bill to every single one of these patients. Now you'll notice that all of these are checked off. If, for example, there's a patient that shouldn't be on there, you can actually uncheck them. And then they will not have a bill applied to them. But generally, if you've tidied up your panel, you'll be good to go and you'll be able to select all of them. So I'm going to click on the gears icon and you'll see there'll be a little pop-up window here. It's gone in a flash. So it's actually done all those patients. Now, I mean, I know I've only got 7 patients here, but if I had more patients, I would now go to page 2 and I'd click on the gear icon and run it again. I go to page 3. So I'd run through all my pages and use the gear icon every single time to make sure that I've created a bill for each of the page that we have here. So that really is the end of step 2. So we've created the bills and now we want to submit them. So in this time, step 3, we go to My Bills. We click on My Bills. It will come up with your default criteria, or if you have a default filter, but I'm going to set the criteria. So I'm just going to do today's date. So I'm going to select start. So start and end is today. Excuse me. I need to change this to pending. So I'm going to make sure it's pending only. You can see they're already popping up. But I want to make sure that I'm only going to be submitting for the one provider. In this instance, this is myself. So I select myself as the provider. And you may have other billings that you've created in this day. So we recommend that you actually just filter this to your panel report patients. And the way that you do that, you can add another additional field to filter by. So you click on this little blue down arrow, and that gives you more options. So we're now going to select billing code. And then in the code field on the right-hand side, we type the 98990 and we hit enter. And this will now, you will now see it's there. And if I expand that, you can see it's checked. So it's just looking for the 98990 code. So this would be my list. Now, obviously, when we ran the report, we were able to see what the count was. So now it's worth checking how many you have here to make sure that maybe you didn't accidentally do one of the pages and you're maybe missing 200 patients. So if I go up here to the arrow, you can see it will give you the number. So I have 1 of 7. I got 7 patients, which is the same number that I had in report. So I've made sure that each of those patients has a bill attached. Now we are almost ready to submit. You'll notice, because I'm in a test database, that all of these have warnings on them. So this is when actually you may need to do a small amount of tidy up, and so it's worth reviewing all the warnings. So the first thing I would do is I would go to the arrow in the top right and change the limit. So at the moment, the limit's 50. I mean, you might want to do 1,000 or 2,000. So I'll just change it to 1,000 for now. And then what you can do is you can scroll through and you can check whether you need to fix some of these. So some of these could be, for example, like the PHN is out of date, or maybe there's a missing PHN, or maybe they're an out of province patient, like an Alberta patient. And so if there are some that can be corrected, then it's worthwhile going into that chart and updating anything that's that needs correcting. If it's really not valid and something that cannot be fixed, then I would actually right click on it and I would actually delete the bill. So we can delete those ones that are not gonna go through. Because the out of province ones, for example, if they have an Alberta PHN, they will get rejected. So it's worth cleaning it up. I mean, you could go ahead and bulk submit all of them, but it just won't submit all the ones with warnings on. So once you've gone through and checked the ones that you can update and the ones you can correct, then you're ready to submit them. And the way that we do this is that we go up to this batch icon at the top, we click on batch, and then you have this bulk approve icon here. And this will only bulk approve whatever's on the page. And so I know I've only got 7 records, we've got 1 page, but if you've got multiple pages, then you would need to bulk approve each one at a time. When I click on this, I mean, I'll click on this, it's not going to do anything because I'm in a test database. But if you're trying to bulk approve, let's say 1,000 claims at once, which you can do, it will just take time. It will take a minute or 2 to go through. So you just have to be a little bit patient. But if I click approve bowls, you'll get this pop up, but it's not going to do anything because we're not connected. This test database is not connected to TeddyPlan. So it's not going to change the status. But if these had gone through, then the status would obviously get updated and then these would disappear off the list. So if you then go to the next page, bulk approve, and then you should either be left with nothing on here, or you'd be left with the ones where there's still warnings that maybe still need to be corrected or deleted. And really that is how you submit your panel report through the billing part of the EMR.